Welcome to Stars and Hedgerows. I am with my dear friend and colleague Sue Judge, who is a holistic wellbeing practitioner and also a naturopathic nutritionist. So I'm really interested in questioning her about this time of year leading up to the equinox and what we can do for ourselves to support ourselves going into this really huge transition time between the end of summer and the beginning of autumn. So, Sue, welcome.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Let's just start off with how do you look at the equinox as a kind of well-being thing for us?
Okay, so when I first trained, we were starting to look at equinoxes, probably not even with that name, but spring and autumn, at a time of transition. So thinking about going from the cool, raw foods of summer into the warming, spicy, richer foods and comfort foods of autumn and winter. So that's where I started. And then over the years, I've just layered upon layered my knowledge and understanding from there. So it's a really good time to just take stock. And, our summer's been a bit rubbish this year, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But thinking about that transition and also energetically from a more sort of spirit-centered yang out there of summer, we're retreating more to that soul withdrawn reflective time. So there's something there with nutrition, with our energy of this transitional time as well, I think.
Yeah, and do you know what struck me as you were talking is this whole, we've had a very wet summer, haven't we? And I think we're all feeling a bit damp and sort of feisty. It's lovely weather. I mean, haven't we been blessed in the last couple of days? But how can we build up our resistance, because when we are feeling damp, we can get ill, colds and all that kind of stuff, and feel pretty low mood-wise.
Yeah.
So how can we use this time of year or whatever we can find to build our resilience and get us ready for this transition?
Well, I think there's a couple of key points that you've mentioned there, is that dampness. So, September, October are perfect times for that damp atmosphere for our mushrooms to grow. And we do have a lot in the UK. But as you say, that damp, stagnant, moldy kind of feel, we want to avoid that. So I think that's again where the cleansing and the clearing come out. And we can't really tolerate those damp, cool foods so much moving forward. So we want to bring in the warming, cooked foods. And I think, for me, if we look at the hedgerows this time of year, this year has been abundant in, things blackberry. So lots of blackberries around. They've been, in fact, around since the end of July, which I think is remarkable. And it just shows how the seasons are definitely changing. This isn't a particularly good specimen here, but this is elderberry from the elder tree. And both of these are really good, high in antioxidants, high in vitamin C. So, nature supplies what we need. We've also got, sorry.
So just before we go further on about, obviously neither Sue or I are doctors. So just be very careful about working with the hedgerows and that you have somebody knowledgeable with you, or don't pick anything that you don't know and don't recognize. You've got to look after yourself when you're working with in the outdoors in hedgerows. Yeah, just
absolutely
make that clear. Carry on, Sue.
And a good example of that is I've got a couple of different red berries here. I've got hawthorn, which you can see on this little tiny sprig is abundant in berries this year. And you'll see a lot of the trees and the hedgerows really full of these deep red berries. These ones are rose hips, and you can tell they're slightly elongated shape. They're slightly orangey red, and you can see the telltale rose leaf there. But also this year you will find poison ivy. So again, a bright red berry. So be really clear on what it is you're picking. And it might just be that just noticing these things and noticing how nature has naturally provided for us is enough of a connection for you, actually.
That's true. Looking at the colour.
Yeah, the colour, and we resonate so much with plants. And I think just being outside, getting anyone outside, especially at the moment, we've got glorious sunshine. It's an absolute pleasure. And I think those late sort of summer, autumn days, you just feel that it's a real gift when you get the sunlight, don't you?
Oh, yeah. So, Sue, what can we do with what you're introducing us to from the hedgerows? I mean, obviously, you can go and buy. I know you make syrups, and you talk about that in a minute. But obviously, you can go and buy these in places like Holland and Barrett. So,
or a
wherever
health food shop,
yeah, or any health or a health food shop. But how do you make your syrups?
So I would pick up the blackberries, the elderberries, and you would use the back of a fork to pull them off. You don't want any of the stalks or leaves. I'd pick blackberries. This year I used some hawthorn. Hawthorn's very high in pectin, so if you've ever made jam, that's what makes it set. You can put in some rose hips, any of these berries actually, and slow. The old sort of wives' tale is that to wait for the first frost, but you can cheat and pop them in the freezer overnight, and that will sweeten them. It helps to break down some of the fibers in them, and so you can just gradually
slow gin.
Yeah,
I do that when I make slow gin. Yeah,
exactly. So I would, get all my berries and give them a little rinse, put them in a pot. You can add a touch of water if you want. I don't normally put in much, and I just simmer it really, really slowly. Put in things like some lemon peel. It's got vitamin C in it. A sprig of thyme. Thyme is a really good expectorant for the chest.
Yes.
Some cinnamon. Cinnamon is very warming. It helps regulate our blood sugar levels, and obviously it just tastes and smells amazing. I'd put in some ginger as well because that's really warming. And you just cook that up, and just the smells. And then what you can do is add some local honey to that to sweeten. So you don't need much, but you will find it's a bit more palatable with a bit of sweetness in there. So you can keep it in the fridge. You can make it, dilute it more with water if you want, or you could just be quite decadent and spoon that over your berries and yogurt in the morning, or your porridge.
Yeah, and also you were talking about how nettles are coming to the end at the moment, and how you're using the seeds from the dying off nettles. Do you want to explain what you do with those? I found that I'd never done that before.
So this is a female plant, and you can tell it's a female plant. It's a bit more abundant in the seeds, and we've had a sort of a later flush of nettles. Nettles are amazing. They've got so many properties on so many different levels and at different times. But I think thinking about where people are at the moment in general, most people feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, really stressed. Summer hasn't been great. There's a lot of grief, going into autumn and winter, and they're just not feeling that they've been topped up over the summer.
Yeah.
So you can, if you're careful, that you can pick the leaves, pick the nettle from the bottom, so that the little spikes on them, if you go down the stem, you're safe and you won't get stung, but obviously some gloves would be great. So I would pick these and then lay them out over a muslin. or hang them up, let them dry. If you've got a dehydrator, that's great. And then they'll come off the little stalks. And these I keep in jars with, you know, the little silica sachets you get in packages. You can pop one of those in once they're dry, and then just sprinkle these over salads or soups. And they're really good for the adrenal glands. So they're really going to help support our resilience.
Wow. So adrenal glands is all about fear. If you've got low adrenal glands, you can feel very disconnected, fearful, and adrenaline can be running all the time, or you're just absolutely exhausted. So this is a really great, isn't it? So literally I have them in the garden.
And they're free. So that's a good point, actually. Only pick them where you know that they haven't been sprayed, there hasn't been, you know, dogs and things around them. But yeah, it's free and so abundant again. So be selective on the ones that you pick, but very easy, and that will last you all year.
And the other plant that we were talking about was mugwort, which is, I know, one of your favourite. People might not know what mugwort looks like, but it's everywhere at the moment. Do you want to explain to those that do understand what it looks like, what they could do with that?
Yeah, so it's often found in our hedgerows and by the side of roads. So it can grow very, very tall, up to 8 foot.
Silvery, isn't it? Kind of
Yes.
silvery, yeah.
Silvery underneath. And so this is a plant that's been long connected with witches. It's supposed to help with lucid dreaming. And so you can make a tea with mugwort. But you can also use it as a smudge. So in a lot of land-based practices, they use smudging as a way of clearing energy. And typically you think of white sage, which we don't grow in this country, but mugwort would be the herb, the plant that we would have used. So again, very easily available. They say to pick it close to solstice, summer solstice. You might find that it's already flowered, it's been past its best at the moment, but that's something again to look out for. And you can just use the dried leaves on a little charcoal disc if you wanted to burn that instead of sage as a way of cleaning and cleansing your space. We tend to think of that spring clean, don't we? But I think to do it in autumn as well is actually really important, as we're putting away our summer clothes, getting out our jumpers, clearing that space, just like nature does. You know, it drops its leaves, it, you know, doesn't kick and scream like I always kick and scream in September because I'm never ready for the summer to go. But if we look at nature, I picked this piece of hazel. It's starting to lose its leaves, but it's already got its catkins, look, for next year. So there's a trust that there's more to come. And I really love that thought with nature that, you know, we get so caught up with our overthinking, don't we?
We do.
But if we can trust, like nature does, that everything has its rhythm, its place, we can learn a lot from that.
And of course, it's absolutely attuned to the cycles of the planets, and a lot of these plants are attuned to planetary energies, and I find that really interesting. And it's like, if you're, you know, the more that we attune to the cosmos and the fact that it manifests here on Earth, the more that we can attune to our own internal cycles. And we're talking about when to do things. And I just wanted to talk to you about the rhythms and the cycles of the moon, because that's a really important. We're just coming up to full moon. Literally, there's going to be a full moon in Pisces in literally 2 days' time, and this full moon particularly is conjunct. The moon is conjunct Neptune, so this is a very mystical, very, very mystical moon. Now, the sort of lower vibration of that, it's quite, the lower vibration of Pisces is confusion and delusion. But if you feel like that, then what I would urge you to do is clear out your cupboards. Attune to what you can pick from the hedgerows. Get the colour into your house, like you've been showing us, the reds and the blacks, and have, you know, the catkins there to remind us that yes, this time is going, but there is an ongoing evolutionary cycle carrying on as the planets are continually moving around the heavens. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think, you know, the way I was taught with the moon was that, you know, the full moon is about that culmination. It's like the most potent version. So with plants, you know, we have things like biodynamic gardening. So we plant at the dark moon so the roots go down, but then we can harvest at the full moon for flowers, plants, fruits, because they'll be the most abundant. The water element, they'll be their most juiciest. So that's a really nice thing to think about, the culmination point that we're coming to, and then after the full moon it'll be the letting go. I think one of the things that I've been looking at, and with this transition in seasons, is that, you know, having self-compassion, and which is really important at the moment, and thinking, you know, when we started looking at these different plants, so we've got rose, bramble, hawthorn and sloe here. These are all part of the rose family. So I've got a lovely little rose
the
here.
rose is love. She's attuned to Venus.
Yeah. And how we could all do with a little bit more of that in our lives.
Oh my gosh, we so could.
Yeah.
I think the other thing about Pisces, for me, the higher aspect of Pisces is compassion. And actually, and being so in tune with the collective and understanding our intuition and working with our intuition. And I think it'd be interesting to see what you say about this, but this is a perfect time, isn't it, to find a tree, to go and find a tree for autumn. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
So there's a few things I'd pick up on, actually. So you talked about Pisces and the water, and, you know, the heart being compassion. So in a lot of land-based practices, we would look at this time of year with the solstices and the equinoxes, linking in with the directions and the elements. So we're heading now to, well, we're in the west, which is linked with the element of water. So this is perfectly aligned with autumn and the letting go, the grief and the flowing of emotions there. But it's also picking up on that sort of mystical, mythopoetic kind of mystery of life as we start to go into the underworld, into ourselves, into that soul work.
The dream world.
Yeah. And, you know, it's about reclaiming our energy, taking our energy back. And again, we're at this point of harvest where we've got this abundance of fruit, you know, so very high sugar. But nature created this at such a perfect time for us to nourish ourselves. And fructose is broken down by the liver, and it helps us to store, instead of just utilizing that as glucose, store it as a lovely layer of fat to keep us warm and to sustain us over the winter.
Yes.
Which I think is perfect. The only problem is we consume far too much of it all year round. But if we were to live seasonally,
Yeah.
we'd be in a much better place.
Yeah. And now we talked a lot about your fire cider.
Ah, yeah.
Would you like to say something about that? Because that is something else.
Yeah.
Easy to
So,
make, isn't it?
yeah. We would have had different ways of preserving, nature's abundance, and there would have been vinegars, it would have been salting,
Yes.
it would be fermentation. So one of the ones that I really like to do, and it's so easy, and if you look on the internet, there's loads of recipes, is fire cider. So you start off with an apple cider vinegar with the mother. So this means it's a live product. It's got some sediment in the bottom if you're looking at it. And you start with that. And then I use red onion because anything red, purple, black has got more antioxidants. It's just better for you. So I always buy.
And it's got a Mars energy. Mars is red.
There you go. So you start with onion, and then you would put in horseradish, which if you've ever had fresh horseradish, it's phenomenal. It just clears all your sinuses out. It's really hot, fiery, earthy flavour. So I pop that in. And because we've got access to it now, I would use ginger as well, that warmth. You can use garlic in there. And you would chop all this up and pop it in your jar. So a big Kilner jar, and top it up to the top. So you can put in other things like thyme again, or oregano. These are all, most of our herbs, have got really potent medicinal properties. A lot of them are antifungal, antibacterial, antimicrobial. So again, really, really good. You can use orange and lemon, and even if you don't want to say use the whole orange, obviously get unwaxed ones from the supermarket. But if you use a peeler, a vegetable peeler, and just take the skin off once it's been washed and pop that in, it's going to really sort of bring out some of those volatile oils from the skin, from the zest, and potentize your cider vinegar.
And so that's great tonic, isn't it?
Oh, it's phenomenal. You can put in some chili, whether it's cayenne pepper as just the powder or fresh chilies in there to really give it a kick. And then you keep it for about a month, 6 weeks. You might want to just stir it up. Just shake the bottle carefully. And then at the end of that time, you strain all the bits out and you warm it very, very slightly to mix it with some local honey. So it's just to take the edge off. You don't want to make it sweet. And then you consume this as a small shot. It's brilliant to have, like, if you feel the beginning of a cold or a cough coming on, and you just take it as a shot, or if, as I say, to clear your sinuses. It's amazing and so cheap and easy to make.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking about, people love ritual, and a lot of us people who are learning astrology are really into the magic of ritual. So for an autumn equinox ritual, what would you suggest is the best thing to do to ritualize this letting go of the summer, acknowledging the grief and the sorrow, which I suffer from melancholic, so I have to work with that, and to sort of to be focused on building resilience for the coming autumn stroke winter.
Yeah. So you could do the mugwort cleansing in your house. So definitely that clearing up, like you said, and clearing out is a really good place to start. So something like burning mugwort or another incense. And I think always doing something with intention, it just makes everything so much more potent then. A nice little thing to do if you had an open fire or you had a fire bowl at home is to get bay leaves and write on your bay leaves what it is you want to release, because they're really magical. You pop them in the fire and they crackle and pop. So it really is very therapeutic to do that. But you could as autumn is coming, find leaves that have fallen and write on the leaves, because it will go back into the ground.
Yes, absolutely.
Making space is a really good thing. I think sitting with rose or hawthorn and being compassionate, allowing yourself to feel that grief and sorrow is really important. We tend to live in a grief phobic society, which has to make everything perfect and happy and shiny.
Yes.
And it's really important to acknowledge that actually, no, there is some grief there, whether it's grief about, the days becoming shorter, or there's some anxiety. So for if you do suffer from seasonal affective disorder, that there is a little bit of anxiety there. So that's where Rose again comes in with that self-compassion. Okay, what can I do? And that comes back round to mushrooms. Mushrooms are phenomenal.
Yeah.
They're brilliant for our immune system. So any mushroom, just your bog standard button mushrooms, they're going to help. They're full of something called beta glucans that are going to really support your immune system. And they have this amazing ability. So even like on a beautiful day like today, if you put them on your windowsill, they would actually make more vitamin D for you. Which, if nature isn't trying to tell us something there. So vitamin D is the vitamin that we synthesize when our skin comes into contact with sunlight. So typically on the UK, we're really deficient, and this summer won't have helped us a lot. And this is where I do say, you're really probably better off to supplement. Get tested, find out where you are, but there are optimal levels. And this helps with our mental health, our immune system, post-menopause, our bone health, preventing osteoporosis. So it's a really, really important thing to do. That's the top tip.
I think it's actually ritualizing. I always say to people, when you're doing a ritual, is light a candle to yourself. Light a candle to the universe, light a candle to the earth. It can be just one candle, but you've got that intent. Sue, we're just running out of time. So is there anything else that you would like to say or share with anyone about how to build resilience as we move into autumn?
Let go of what doesn't serve you, where you say yes and actually you mean no. So think about that energy coming back into the heartwood of the tree to nourish your roots now in preparation for the autumn and winter. So how can you start to really nourish yourself? And it could be by taking time to have that ritual every morning, creating a little altar with your foraged finds from nature, so you just remember how connected you are.
And you can do it with your children. They'll love it. They will just love it. Okie dokie. Well, I think that is just awesome. And you're so knowledgeable. I just absolutely love it. So for everybody, enjoy your fire cider. And
Rosemary Gladstar is a perfect person to look up on the internet. She's written a whole book on fire cider.
Okay.
Gladstar. Yeah.
Gladstar. I'll pop the link in below this video. And we're going to be doing a video about how to use the turns of the year. How to ritualize them, what you can use in the stars and hedgerows. So we'll see you next time.